When the Super Conqueror got nerfed, the 60TP rose up and became the king of the tech tree heavy tanks. If you want to play Onslaught, this is the tank to get now, and it is the most competitive tech tree heavy tank in the game. In this video, I'm going to give you a full guide to the 60TP. Whether you'll be playing with it or against it, there is something here for you to learn. There's a reason why this is one of the most played heavy tanks in the game. So let's take a deep dive into the 60TP. Let's first start out with the basics. What this tank can and can't do. The pros and cons of the 60TP. It has a 750 alpha damage gun, which reloads relatively fast considering the alpha damage. So it has okay DPM combined with very, very good alpha damage. It has at base 2,600 hit points. If you get all the field mods, that then goes up to 2,680 hit points. If you go ahead and put hardening in the correct slot, you'll get 2,860 hit points. And with field mods, you will get 2,950. Obviously with bounty hardening and bond hardening, that'll be even more. So the tank is very, very healthy. It goes at 35 km/h base, however you do get a field mod which will increase your top speed by 4 km/h, meaning that you will go at 39. And since it does have half decent terrain resistance, if you do put on off-road driving as a perk, you'll be able to at least get up very, very close to the 39 km/h, going at 38.81 km/h on medium terrain, and obviously the 39 on hard. This also means that if you put a turbo on the vehicle, you will go at 44 km/h, and that then makes this tank incredibly fast for what it is. The standard rounds for this tank are AP, and they are only 250mm, which means that you are going to struggle against a lot of other tanks that are very heavily armoured. However, even though that this is only 250mm of pen, you can overmatch a lot considering that you do have a 152mm plus caliber gun. The caliber on this tank is actually 152.4, which means that you can overmatch a lot more stuff than you would actually think. For example, the roof of an S-Conc can be overmatched by this tank, and even the roof of a 60TP, so itself, can be overmatched by this thing. And that is all because of the 0.4 that it has extra as its caliber. Now, for those of you wondering, well, okay, I have bad standard rounds, maybe the heat pen is any better. It's only 317, which again, is kind of in the middle for is it good, is it bad? A lot of the time, 317 is going to be more than enough. Remember, this is heat. It's not going to lose pen over distance, and if you are up close and personal, it can be frustrating, especially against tanks like the Mouse, where sometimes you might not pen if you go a little bit high or a little bit low, whereas with 330 and 340 heat, you would just pen that regardless. So it can be frustrating, but on the most times, it's fine. And the HE rounds have 90 pen with 950 alpha, which means that you can high roll that pen and do well over 1000 alpha damage, and that surprises quite a few people. But there is one thing that is a massive downside to this tank though, and that is the ammo rack. The ammo rack is located directly below the turret and also in the back of the turret, and it is super easy to get damaged. More on that later in the video, but it is one of the biggest downsides of this vehicle. Now, the armor of the 60TP is one of the most annoying things to actually deal with, because there are so many times where you think you're going to pen and then you end up just not penning at all. Like this lower plate, for example. It is 110mm thick and angled exceptionally well, which means that if you go above them, this becomes very annoying to pen, and you can't even really go through the upper hole either. So when a 60TP is angled like this, and you don't have enough pen, you are just going to ricochet. Because this is with 250 pen. If you use heat, yes, you can pen it. However, look how awkward it is when you get up to around here. You're going to need 330, 320 to actually go through it. And you could ricochet even with 317 heat. And if you go for the lower plate at this angle, you're not penning it. No matter what you do, you are going to need 320mm, well 330 plus to actually go through it. And if you use AP, it's an auto ricochet. And there's another thing that is super annoying on this tank, is that underneath the tank, it is an auto ricochet as well. However, because this is 50mm thick, it needs a 150 caliber gun to go through it and overmatch it. A 60TP can do this. So if you are in a 60 TP and you're going to shoot the lower plate and you're at an angle like this, or where you can see it where it's kind of head on like so, just fire AP at it. Because if you fire heat, you have a chance of actually bouncing off the lower plate. And this lower plate actually comes out a little bit where you can see it even when you're head on like so. So you could actually get super unlucky, go low, and it just bounces off the belly. So now you know why there's been so many shots where you go and shoot at the lower plate and it goes low, and then you end up hitting the belly and it just ricochets off. Because against any normal tank, let's take the 113 for example, this is an auto ricochet with AP, but then you could always pen it right here on the lower plate. So this tank is incredibly frustrating to play against unless you know what you're doing. Or you have a caliber gun that is above 150mm. Unfortunately, the 113 doesn't have that. So, yeah, try and avoid shooting lower plate if you can, because it's very troll sometimes. Now, moving on up to the middle bit, which is where I'm guessing this is the driver's hatch, because it would make sense for him to be sitting there. But around here, you'll see that this is 230mm thick, like so. Be careful with this. I have lost count with how many times I've tried to pen this exact spot. It's gone left, it's gone right, it's gone up, it's gone down, and it's just bounced. Even with heat, this is frustrating. In fact, it's easier with AP if you are in a one-on-one with a 60 TP because of the fact that you can overmatch the top of this. Because that way, if you go high, you can just go through it anyway. And if you go low, you should still be able to pen this. However, either side of it, you're not going to pen. So it is incredibly annoying when someone face hugs you in a 60 TP, especially if you don't have the overmatch. If you're in a tank that can't overmatch this, and you don't have good heat pen either, it can be annoying. If you are in a face hugging situation with one of these things, try and go underneath the gun right here. However, 9 times out of 10, the 60 TP is going to be wiggling like this to try and block your shot. If you are using heat, that's just going to get absorbed by the gun and you're not going to pen. So it is incredibly frustrating to play against one of these things when they're face hugging you. The best bet is to go underneath the gun, left or right. And that's if you can't go for the driver's hatch. And then your last resort, honestly, if you can shoot the lower plate, then try it. But remember, if you're above it, this plate is going to get a lot weaker. But at the same time, there's not many tanks that are super, super tall compared to the 60 TP. Now moving up the turret, you will see that above it right here is an overmatch. If you are in a 60 TP, you can go ahead and overmatch the roof of another 60 TP. This is because the roof is 50mm thick, exactly the same as the belly on this tank. So if you can overmatch the belly, you can overmatch the roof. So if you can shoot the roof, go for it. If you are in a 60 TP, obviously, or anything that has above 150mm caliber gun, and you will pen every single time. The cupola on this tank is annoying, I would say. There is an overmatch on the roof of the cupola, which is nice, but you're never really going to hit that. And the same thing goes for this. To actually hit the roof of a 60 TP is kind of annoying, because as I said, there's not too many tanks that can be super tall compared to this tank. So actually being able to shoot this, you're going to need to be on a higher ground and then go for it, or just get lucky that you manage to hit this. But if you go low, you're going to bounce. If you go right, if you go left, you're going to bounce. This is an interesting shot to be able to hit. And obviously, if you do want to go for that cupola, load heat, because it makes your life a hell of a lot easier. As you can see with AP, there's all these little kind of rectangles where the armor is slotted into it. So as you go to the left, it gets harder and harder and harder to pen, and there's a lot more surface area for you to be able to hit with heat. Now, as I said at the start, the ammo rack is very weak on this vehicle, and they are located, as you can see right here, in the hull. So you've got one directly underneath the turret, and one kind of either side going along the upper hull of this tank towards the front. You also have one in the belly, which means that if you do shoot this tank, you could go straight through the lower plate and directly hit this if you aim low enough. Which means that if you are going to be, I mean, the driver is sitting right here as well. But usually, if you're going to be shooting the lower plate, you're going to hit something. You could hit the engine, you could hit the fuel tanks, but the ammo rack directly in the center. The ammo rack is also located in the turret right here at the very back. As you can see, if you are going to be shooting one of these things in the turret, try and aim for the right-hand side, the right-hand back of this tank, because you will be able to shoot and probably pen this ammo rack. It's a pretty easy ammo rack to hit, and it happens a lot. If you also want to hit the fuel tanks, directly at the back here, either side of the engine. So if you do want to hit this nice and easy right here, don't ever really shoot it in the middle. Always aim for the left or the right. Although if you are side on, then this is a pretty easy shot to hit. Load some AP, go straight through the tracks right here, and then you'll hit the fuel tanks at the back. And that goes for either side as they extend right below the track line here. Now for the ammo loadout, I like to go for a 50-50 loadout and then take a little bit of HE. The HE is really good on this tank, however, you don't get a lot of shells in this vehicle. So you can't just go willy-nilly on the HE because you're probably going to run out of the AP or heat. As we said at the start, the 250 AP rounds, they are very good for overmatching things, and that's about it, because the 250 is not really enough to fight against another super heavy tank, unless you're going for the sides or something like that. So unless you can overmatch, majority of the time when you're fighting super heavies, like the Mouse, like the Type 5, you're going to want your heat rounds. Now that's not to say that the AP rounds are completely useless, because I've actually had more success with the AP rounds than I have with the heat rounds, because a lot of the time, tanks just show their sides for no reason. And the AP round will go through tracks, no issue, and probably damage whatever else is inside it, whereas the heat rounds, a lot of the time, just get absorbed by the tracks. So I like to just take 50-50 loadout. This is what I use to mark it. It worked out very well for me. One thing to note also is that every single shell has 900 shell velocity. So no matter what shell you fire, it should be very consistent with what you can predict for the shell path. Now the equipment on this vehicle is a little bit interesting because there's a few things that you can actually take. When I was marking this tank, I actually took HP, rammer, and vents, and didn't use stab. However, I will say for 99% of people, you should keep the stab rather than vents, because the gun handling, even though for me personally it wasn't that bad, I can't just wholeheartedly go out and just say yes, drop the stab, because it's just not going to be a thing for most people. Most people will get annoyed with not hitting the shots and not having that extra bloom reduction when you're turning the turret over what the vents will give you, which is very little in the grand scheme of things. Another setup is HP, turbo, and rammer. You should never be dropping the HP or the rammer for your main loadout, because it just provides so much for this tank that it just makes no sense to drop either of those. So in my opinion, HP, rammer, and then you can pick turbo, you could pick vents, you could pick stab. It's really down to you at the end of the day. Whatever you feel comfortable with, you should then pick. For the secondary loadout, this is where it gets... Well, this is Prokhorovka. And I'm not joking when I say this, it's basically only Prokhorovka that I use this on. Because I don't need HP, I don't need the turbo, and I don't need anything else. All that I really need in Prokhorovka is view range. Because if my light tank sucks out and dies, I can then just go to the middle of the map, be super annoying by going hold down and spot people who make mistakes. So even if I have like 3 light tanks on my team, I don't care. I'm picking this loadout because most of the time, this loadout is pretty irrelevant. You don't do a lot of brawling in Prokhorovka. A lot of it is you just sitting somewhere and waiting, or waiting to spot, waiting to shoot, something like that. So we go with optics, rammer, and vents. The reason for vents over anything else is to just boost the optics even more. And then we have the directive for optics as well, which means that we have 538 meters view range in a heavy tank. Sure, we don't have CVS, which would make this absolutely broken if we could, but that is more than enough. If they go out in the open, we should spot them. And just quickly, also, we obviously have the directive for the ammo rack, because yeah, this thing loves getting ammo racked. Also, for when I was marking this tank, I didn't use this hardening. I didn't use bounty hardening. I used the experimental hardening tier 3, and I still even used the directive as well. This is because, obviously, ammo rack issues with this tank. If you're not going to be using experimental, make sure you have the directive and make sure you have safe storage as your perk as well. And it does need to be tier 3 for survivability for the experimental hardening, because it doesn't get enough track health otherwise if you use tier 1 or tier 2. It has to be tier 3 combined with the field mod, which we'll come on to in a second. That will then give you enough track health to be competitive in this thing. Otherwise, you might as well just be using config on this tank rather than survivability tier 1 or tier 2, because they are just that useless. Config will give you way more than those two would. Which, to be fair, not a bad shout if you don't have that. So if you don't like the normal hardening with just a directive, put config on it, especially if you don't have the perk yet. And swiftly moving on to field mods, the first one, right hand side. This is because you have more than enough terrain resistance and top speed when you are going onto that medium terrain that it is fine to choose the right hand field mod. You will go down to 36 kilometers an hour top speed rather than the 39 that we have here, combined with the 7th field mod, but we'll move on to that in a second. Next up, for number 4, we have the left-hand side, then the right-hand side. These are just two standard ones. Obviously, the first one changes between tank to tank, depending on the terrain distances and what you're going to be using it for. Because we are using hardening, we will be choosing the right-hand field mod. If you're going to be using config, however, track hit points don't really matter for that. So you might as well just choose the left-hand field mod if you're going to use config. Because you're going to repair your track fast enough anyway. And if you leave it blank, it's not really going to give you any more hit points. So just choose the left one and be faster, because that makes more sense. And if you choose the right hand side, it's not going to give you enough to kind of withstand a shot most of the time. So if you are using config, left hand side. For number 7, top speed. And this is a no-brainer. There is no point of choosing the other one at all. The aiming speed doesn't really matter, to be honest with you. Because as long as you get that bloom down, you're fine. Like you go up to 3-second aim time, which it's fine, honestly. Like it really doesn't matter in this tank. The vast majority of the time, if you're using stab as well, it really doesn't matter. But even when I wasn't using stab at all, I didn't notice me wanting to choose the right hand side. So always choose the top speed. The top speed is going to help you out way more than the other one would. And for number 8, hit points. Because the good thing about this is that it's only 4%. It doesn't really make much of a difference. Sure, if you're not going to be using stabs, maybe you could use this, but I've never really noticed any problems, honestly. Like, just choose hit points and be done with it. Now for the crew, this should be pretty simple because you can directly move up your crew from the 50 TP to the 60 TP. It is exactly the same commander, gunner, driver, loader as you would find in the tier 9. Now obviously the main ones that you're going to be wanting is to have brothers in arms, repairs, recon and situational awareness. For the commander, this is because the commander is also the radio operator on this tank. Past that, doesn't really matter what you choose, to be honest. You could choose mentor, you could choose eagle eye like I have. Firefighting would probably be a good shout, and maybe sound detection as well, but it's down to you. For the gunner, same kind of stuff, brothers in arms, repairs, 100% necessary. And then I like to use Deadeye, because on this tank, Deadeye is lovely. You aim for something, you're probably going to hit the module and maybe set it on fire, maybe get an ammo rack, especially when you see another 60 TP, you aim for those fuel tanks. If you have Deadeye, it's super nice. Remember, Deadeye doesn't increase the chance of you hitting, it just increases the chance of you damaging. So you could hit the fuel tanks and never critically hit them. But with Deadeye, you could hit that and you have an extra 3.81% chance of actually causing critical damage and making those fuel tanks go red. And another thing to remember, this is for all shell types except for HE, at least currently in the game until we get the rework. Snapshot is also super important to have, so if you can have Snapshot, I wouldn't say that it's more important than Deadeye. So if you can only have 3 perks, then I would be Brothers in Arms, Repairs, and then training Deadeye. But if you can get Snapshot as your 4th, it's pretty good. For the driver, obviously off-road driving is a must, and also preventative maintenance is a must, because this thing likes to get ammo wrecked, set on fire, whatever it might be. The modules on this tank love getting hit. So anything you can do to prevent engine fires or fuel tank fires or anything like that. Obviously, there's not a lot you can do with fuel tank fires, but this will prevent engine fires up to 31.75%. And off-road driving is obviously very important, considering the not awful terrain instances, but then you just boost them up to make sure that you maintain that speed, especially on that medium terrain. And obviously Brothers in Arms repairs as your 2 standard ones. Smooth Ride, not as much of a benefit, honestly. This is only 5%. It's not like you should 100% get it. Like if I was going to go for just 3 perks, it'll probably be Brothers in Arms, repairs, and then preventative maintenance, and then start training off-road driving, and then Smooth Ride. This crew is kind of all over the place, and I would actually switch these around, but it doesn't really matter. It's 88%. It's mostly done anyway, so I'm not going to bother with that, but that's how I would do it. And then for the loader, nice easy one actually, because you want Brothers in Arms, repairs, safe stowage, okay? Like, even before repairs actually, because if I was going to only have 3 perks, I'd have Brothers in Arms, safe stowage, then be training repairs. Safe stowage on this tank is just 100% a necessity. You need it more than basically anything else on this vehicle. Intuition is good, and it will help you out a lot, especially if you're using that 50-50 loadout like I do, but again, you can live without it as well. Now that we've spoken about absolutely everything to do with this tank, let's go ahead, play some live gameplay, and show you what this thing is like in real time. No cherry picking. What you see is what you get. Well, welcome to Himmelsdorf. I swear this isn't cherry picked. Like, there is a lot of heavy tanks. I mean, this could go horribly wrong at the same time. So, you know, you never know. We're going to go down to the banana road. Hopefully people come this way. Although at the start, as long as this IS-7 isn't going up here, I'm going to just start up by going up here. Because this allows me to get a lot of information. And also hopefully just some free shots at the start. Okay. IS-7 pushing through as well. Are they going to push all the way through? If they are, then I'm going to wait here for a second. I know the 50B is an easy shot. Oh, okay. Rip. But if they're going to be pushing through here, then you can get easy shots on people from here, which is really, really nice. Although it doesn't seem like they're going to be pushing right now. So we'll just wait and see. I think the biggest issue that people have with this map is that they want to push something and they get bored easily. Whereas if you just wait, you'll be okay. Like eventually someone's going to make a dumb play and push through here, or maybe they'll push through the middle or do something else. I can also go from here and shoot people that are crossing at the back. So we just wait and see what happens. We are 3000 HP down, which is not great. Hello. A little bit delayed there. Also, it's not really worth me going here. Also, the Zeppelin's coming in. Yeah, it's not really worth me going here because I'm just going to get in the way of people. Let's see if this 50B wants to peek up again. He may do. I mean, once that Zeppelin comes down, the IS-7 is going to have to go backwards or forwards, and he's going to have to make a choice. He's going to have to make his choice pretty fast. Are you going to go forwards or backwards, Mr. IS-7? Which way? Mr. IS-7, you're going to die if you don't. Are they okay? I think they're okay. Yeah, they're okay. Oh, hello. It's very rude of you. Very rude, Mr. Rhino. That's actually quite annoying that he's managed to get some shots out. Okay. Well, in that case then, I'll just reverse. Ah, man. Getting shot up on the hill now. Okay, well this is, really? Yeah, this is awful. Our team's lost the hill, and now this is over. Well, I said no cherry picking. Now I'm ammo-racked. Yep, that's what happens when you don't cherry pick your games. You get useless teams, so rip. Not a lot I can really do, unfortunately. I can't even reliably pen this guy. It's going to probably be our final shot, to be honest. Yep, we're not padding. What a useless team, man. There you go. Nothing you can do about that. Welcome to World of Tanks in 2024. But don't worry, we came top on damage. Well, let's hopefully have a better game. Although it's Mountain Pass, so probably not. Okay, well, I mean, this is a tier 9 game, so... Oh, tier 60 as well, hello. Worth a try. Right, we have a slight problem to our left, it's that the Cobra is around there. So we need to watch out for that. Although I don't think he's going to be able to shoot us unless he... Oh, hello. Can't overmatch you though. I can pen you if I go with heat though. So we'll load heat for him. You can go straight for his forehead with heat. And we just need to watch out for the Cobra if he peeks out this way. AMX is watching that as well, which is really good. And in 2 seconds I should be able to kill this guy. Get him out of the game. Lovely. Even getting assistance, which is really, really nice. Sharing half of the M4, I think. Alright, well, let's now push up. I swear, man, it's either a turbo win or a turbo loss. That's all you get. Like with all the tanks nowadays. Hey, my assistance as well. Full assistance for that, actually. Not bad. Alright, well, let's continue. Jagdpanzer in the middle. I don't really want to fight the Jagdpanzer, to be honest with you. I'd rather push through here than get into their base. The reason being is that I can then fight the Jagdpanzer later. The real way of winning this game is just to push straight through, because all of their tanks are down here. So like, we're going to have to just push straight through here. Should be able to pen this guy. There we go. I was a little bit worried because that phase 1 kept going further forwards and I was worried that he's going to block him, so I had to take the shot early. But let's kill these, get up onto the hill and start to farm. Mr. AMX, am I going to get a shot on you? Sorry. I actually didn't realise he was using the stock turret. I thought that was AMX65T then. It looks so weird with a stock turret. Oh dear. Okay, let's see if anybody has come back. AMX is going to go down. It's okay. Hopefully they're going to start sending people backwards so that then we can just farm them. I mean, as I said, this is the only real way of actually winning this game. And I don't believe I actually need to do anything right now. I can just sit up here and just wait. I mean, they should start coming back. There's the E75. They're kind of trapped there. I mean, I could push forwards a little bit to get a better angle on this, but... yeah, do you know what? I will, actually. You know what? This is not the safest route of doing this, but it is the fastest, so we're just going to go for it. I need to get a little bit more damage out of this game, to be honest. I'd like at least 2 more shots. If I get 2 more shots, that's been an okay game. Managed to sneak up on this E5. Go for its fuel tanks or something. 799. I'm just going to get back behind here, which forces the E5 to go out. And I can finish the E5. Lovely. I can actually overmatch the E5's side armor, which is really good. But yeah, okay, that was a much better game though, like a much better game. That kind of showed you everything. So at least we got that in there. But again, 15-5. Like, it's either a turbo win, turbo loss. So yeah, not an insane game by any means, but I think that it showed you enough. I mean, I could keep going on and on and on and on until I get, you know, like an insanely good game. But honestly, this tank is already free marked. Like, I don't think I really need to prove anything else. But that is a 60 TP. It is a beautiful heavy tank. It's so well rounded, just with everything that it's got going for it. Even its weaknesses, as long as you know what to look out for, you can overcome them. If you did enjoy this video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. It does help me out a lot. I'm trying to put more effort into these videos and gaining as many subs as I can. So if you did enjoy, support me in that way. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video.